Hello, I'm Peter and this is the Scottish Flute Channel, the channel for all things traditional flute and whistle playing in Scotland. Now, last time I was in Stonehaven at the Folk Festival, today I'm in Fochabres for SpeyFest, and with me I have Calum Stewart.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Calum, nice to see you.
Good to be here.
And I'm very fortunate, I've just sat in a workshop with Calum and he has agreed to do an interview, so thank you. I'm sure all of my viewers will have heard of you, but just in case, do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and where did you, because you originated not too far from here.
Yeah, well, we're in Fochabres today for SpeyFest in the kind of heartland of Moray. I'm from Garmouth. I grew up in Garmouth, which is about 5 miles away. But Fochabres is the largest little village closest to Garmouth. So we're actually in the Institute in Fochabres here, and I can remember many ceilidhs and dances and sessions and things going on in this place. So it's kind of, the walls are full of music here. So I grew up in Garmouth, that's where I'm from. Lots of ceilidhs and dances and music around here. And then after I left school, I went down to Edinburgh and got involved with the session scene down in Edinburgh. Whilst I was studying, I think I probably spent more time playing music in the pubs than I did in classes. and then basically since then, well, after that I went into England for a wee while, did some playing down there, and I've been playing music, either teaching music to some degree, and for the last sort of 15 years or more, pretty much 100% just playing concerts and teaching sometimes and recordings for other artists and with my own band, and from time to time doing workshops and master classes on uilleann pipes or whistles or on the flute as well, and just mixing it up and keeping it fresh.
Excellent. So going back to your start in Garmouth, was there a lot of traditional music going in the family or in the area?
Yeah, so Moray as a whole would definitely be known more as a fiddle place.
Strathspey Real Society.
Yeah, there's a lot of fiddle. My mum plays fiddle. My sister is a fiddler. My nephews, and all my kind of musical friends from my childhood are all fiddlers as well. So I started off on the penny whistle. That was my first way into traditional music, was the penny whistle. And then I moved on to the uilleann pipes later on, and the flute, which all kind of share the similar kind of fingerings, really. So it's kind of like the Holy Trinity. They were all one part of the same thing, really, in one way or another, you know.
Excellent.
Uilleann pipes, wooden flute, and whistles. So.
Yeah.
And so obviously we met Kenny today. Kenny Haddon, great kind of person and energy in the scene. He was very kind to me when I was younger, and before internet days and before everything was so easily accessible as it is today. He was very kind and used to send me tapes of things to listen to, Irish flute players and Scottish stuff, and sending manuscripts and things like that. So I think
everybody has had tapes from Kenny at some point. It's an amazing resource that he's got.
Absolute legend, really kind. So. And then like most Scottish flute players, really, you kind of you take it and then you run, and you have to just kind of make it up as you go along, and you can obviously be inspired and find things from fiddle playing, from singing and piping as well, and you just kind of try and find your own style and ornamentation and phrasing which suits your own ear and that suits Scottish music and Irish music, which are very close anyway.
Yes. So. And do you think your style has been influenced a lot, particularly with fiddle playing, can be prevalent?
Yeah, I would say so. For in terms of like Scottish music, if it's possible to sort of differentiate Scottish and Irish music, which I don't really like doing that too much because it's all kind of part of the same world to me, really. But you on the flute anyway, in particular, there's a lot of articulation which you can do either using your fingers, or a lot of that would come from emulating the Highland pipes, or maybe uilleann pipes in my case, or both. Yeah. And then a lot of stuff which we do with your tongue and your breathing can in some ways emulate the bow of the fiddle.
Right.
You know, the articulation from both those things. I think there's becoming more of a stronger identity in Scottish flute playing now, which is fantastic. But even in that identity, there's many different styles and sounds. But for me, it was just finding a halfway point probably between piping and fiddle playing, and also just what you think sounds cool, what you think sounds nice, and using all of our armoury, our fingers, tongue, breathing, just to try and make this tube of wood play this music. So
in some areas, the tonguing is kind of frowned upon, but it's just another part of the arsenal, really, isn't it?
I've never met anyone who's frowned on it. Maybe it is in certain circles, but I think it's really good because, you know, for example, the detached bow, staccato, pulsing that you get on a fiddle, that's really useful, or triplets. Yeah. Of course you can do triplets using your fingers, and we all do that anyway, but just to kind of change it up, sometimes it's nice to use the tongue. That really makes it very...
It's a different style, it's a different tone to it, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. I think, just take it and run with it, and just, that's what must be my kind of theory.
Yeah. So you went to Edinburgh, and did you study music in Edinburgh, or were you studying something else?
I did. I mean, at that particular time, when I left Murray, there wasn't any. I didn't know of any traditional music school or university course at that particular time. I went on to do that later on, but at that particular time, I just went down and I did a general music. Okay. It was like modern music actually, so it was more geared towards sound engineering and stage and microphones and just how to work in a studio, how to work live. I think you had to play a little bit of drums and bass guitar and things. So that was kind of during the daytimes, and then in the evenings I would escape to Ensign Ewart, Sandy Bell's, the Shore Bar, Leith. Loads of bars where there would be sessions every night of the week, and that would be that was the real reason I wanted to be in Edinburgh, really.
Right. So, okay. Yeah. A vibrant scene.
Yeah. At that particular time, mid to late 90s, it was really pumping. It was really good. You know, a lot of great musicians kicking around.
That's interesting. I was speaking to Tom Oakes last week, and he was saying the same thing around about that time, late 90s. Yeah. He was around then as well. So it was very vibrant. Yeah.
Well, Tom and I met in Newcastle in the north of England. That's where we met for the first time, and then when we both went away from Newcastle, I went on back to Scotland for a wee while, and then over to Brittany, and Tom moved to Edinburgh. But Tom and I have both got lots of mutual friends in Edinburgh. Yeah, he's very at home there. He's kind of part and parcel of Edinburgh now.
Leith, you could say.
Sorry, Tom. If you're watching this, I'm sorry. Leith.
So he picked me up on it last week. So, so you mentioned you moved to Brittany. What was the drive to move to Brittany?
Originally, I just wanted a bit of a change of scene. There'd been a lot of family issues, not family issues, there'd been a big family change. My father passed away, and I needed to just have a wee bit of change of scene with my family. We'd always spent a bit of time in Brittany for holidays and things like that, so it seemed like a nice place to go and just kind of clear my head a wee bit. Anyway, I ended up staying for a long time. Brittany's kind of one of my bases. It's my main base just now. I've got two children who I always go back to whenever I'm not touring on the road, so I look after them when I'm not on the road. But originally it was a cultural thing, you know. Breton music is, for Celtic musicians, it was for me anyway, it was a kind of a slightly exotic, different, parallel world. Different from Irish music and Shetland and Cape Breton, and it was just a different thing. I don't think Breton music's had any particular influence on my own music. I love to listen to it, but I don't really play it. Okay. But as a place, it's a great place to be, and it's just like a parallel tradition, I would say. They've got different dance tunes and different, slightly different instruments. There are some Breton flute players, of course, fantastic musicians. But I'd say sort of Irish and Scottish and Cape Breton music probably has more in common together than with Breton music.
Okay, excellent. So, who would you say were your main influences from when you were picking up the flute, and particularly the flute?
Well, very lucky. A lot of people helped me.
Sorry about that. There's a singing workshop going on next door, so I hope it doesn't intrude too much.
So yeah, like the fiddle tradition here would have been a big influence. And then we're at SpeyFest now. This is the SpeyFest weekend. So a lot of the guest artists who would be playing at SpeyFest throughout the years would have been a big influence as well. You know, a lot of the Cape Breton musicians who are playing Scottish music or Cape Breton music, but it's like our own music, but you're hearing it with fresh ears again.
Yes.
You know, the way they play the way they were playing Strathspey and reels, you know, back in the 90s. It was like hearing our own music again for the first time. It's really hard to explain, but that was a real awakening, you know. So people like James Alexander, who was the kind of founder of SpeyFest, he would have been a big influence, and was always passing us CDs or tapes and letting us hear different types of music. Kenny Haddon, who we talked about before, he was very instrumental in flute playing. And then basically I just used to travel around a lot. I used to go over to Belfast, mostly. I used to go down to Dublin a wee bit as well, but mostly to Belfast to learn uilleann pipes.
Okay.
So I used to go there as often as I could. So the Belfast kind of piping style and attitude to play music would definitely have been a big input into me as well. In terms of flute players, I don't think I've ever particularly tried to kind of sound like one player, but I've really appreciated different techniques or styles in many different players. You know, Kenny Haddon, for example, and then Chris Norman, who comes over from Nova Scotia. He has a lovely way of playing and articulating Scottish traditional music. Very crisp and precise. It's lovely. And then people like Harry Bradley, again from Belfast, with using a different type of playing, more with your lungs and your breathing as opposed to your fingers. That was a real eye opener as well. Niall Keegan, who, you know, for his use of keys.
Almost
just insane.
And super fast.
Super fast. Jean-Michel Villon in Brittany, again, just for his imagination and taking an instrument which is not necessarily
in the local tradition
from hundreds of years ago, and making it sound like it had always been there, you know.
Yes. It's hard to believe that he almost invented that flute playing in Brittany.
I mean, there are a few other people who were doing it at the same time, but he's definitely the most famous and the most recognised. I think all of these people just gives you the idea that you can basically do anything that you want if it sounds good and it works. You know, Niall Keegan, for example, with the keys, you know, using your keys for doing other things other than just playing the notes. Harry Bradley for the breathing. Jean-Michel Villon, you know, really creative way of doing things. So just using the instrument and just using any possible way to coax stuff out of the instrument that you can to produce the music that you want to do.
So you mentioned the instrument here. Who makes this instrument? Is this your main instrument these days? Main flute? No.
Yeah, so anyone who knows me will know that I'm like an ultra minimalist. I don't like having any extra instruments. I only own one flute, and this is it. This is a lovely instrument from Patrick Allwell. I actually bought this instrument without any metal work on it. It was just all made of wood, and rather than asking permission, I asked his blessing after I did it. But I had these keys put on made by a fantastic keymaker in England called Peter Worrell. And the reason I love this flute so much is it really is a wooden flute. There's no often we use the term wooden flute, and actually the head joint is just cloaked in metal. Sometimes there's metal here, the inside of it is made of metal, and then there's metal bits here. There's no metal in this at all. It's all just wood. So it's maybe got a slightly quieter sound than flutes which have metal in them, but when you put a microphone on it, it works as well. But it's just got a lovely kind of woody, very kind of breathy, punchy, kind of tribal kind of sound to it, which I love. And one-piece head joint as well. So if you need to tune the head joint in and out, then you can pull it out.
Okay. So there's not like a traditional tuning slide even.
Well, what's traditional? I don't know.
Yes. So there's a falling into my own trap there.
This for me is more traditional.
Yes.
Like if you're to go back to pre-Riddle Rose type flutes.
Absolutely.
They would have been one-piece heads anyway.
So let me rephrase that. No metal tuning slide then.
And it's light as well, so I can just shove that in the pipes case and less things to clean.
Excellent.
So yeah, I mean I've always played one flute. I've never jumped around between flutes at the same time. Obviously, anyone who knows me will know that I've been through dozens of different makers of flutes to try and find the right sound and things like that. Riddle Rose originals, Pratten originals, George Ormiston, fantastic Scottish maker, Chris Wilkes, Grinter, Holmes McNaughton. These are all fantastic makers. I think Patrick.
You've played them all.
Yeah. I mean, I think Matt Malloy once said that there's more good flutes out there than there are good flute players, and I would definitely agree with that. I've been spoilt with the amount of flutes I've been able to choose, but Patrick Allwell definitely does it for me. His voicing and his tuning of the flutes really corresponds with what I'm after. So, yeah.
And how would you describe your style?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I'll let other people describe it. I don't know. I just do what I just play. I don't really think too much about it.
You've mentioned that tribal sound. Is that what you're striving for? Is that got elemental focus to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think, for example, if I'm playing like a slow tune, I would really try and go back to simplicity and almost be like singing it or something, you know. Thinking about the phrasing in the notes rather than a demonstration of technique.
Yeah. Okay.
But then if you're playing maybe Strathspey and reels or something which is a bit more up and at 'em, then you could maybe introduce new techniques to kind of at the service of the tune.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know. Obviously, I'm brought up in the north of Scotland. Scottish traditional music is the first influence and the biggest influence. I also play uilleann pipes, which are obviously considered as an Irish instrument today, which are an Irish instrument. So I've also got that. Irish music is very strong, has close links with Scottish music. So I don't know. I just take all these things together. I enjoy writing tunes. I think what I enjoy most of all is playing Scottish music, though. I really enjoy doing that. Just because it's got a wee story. You can remember where you're at in the tune. You can think about the place where the tune is from. That kind of resonates with me. So
okay. And I know you've got a new album just out.
Yeah, indeed.
And do you want to talk a little bit about that? Tell me what were the influences on the album, and who else is playing with you? Yeah.
So the previous album to that was called Tales from the North, and that was a slightly bigger production than I would normally do. We had extra guests and things on. Lauren McCall, for example, on the fiddle, had Gilles Bigot, fantastic Breton guitarist, and Ronan Pellin on the cittern, and Eamon Dourley from Danu, who also plays with Julie Fowlis. He was playing bouzouki, sorry. Tony Byrne on the guitar. So it's quite a lot of different guests at different times. So Tales from the North was really inspired by the legends and the landscapes and the stories from around here in the north of Scotland, giving music, giving a sound and giving tunes to otherwise silent legends. You know, for example, the Big Grey Man up at Ben Macdui. Swayno's Stones, a massive big Pictish carving not too far from here in the Forres. Just these type of things gave me a lot of inspiration, and I wanted to write a lot of tunes for them. The new album, Tales from the North, the new album, True North, is slightly more reduced so far as it's the touring band sound. So it's a trio, bouzouki, double bass, and mostly pipes, mostly uilleann pipes. It's a very pipes-driven album.
Yeah.
That's lovely. But there are a few flute tracks in there.
It's easy for you to say.
But it's a lot more traditional things.
Right.
There's a lot of old Scottish tunes that I've wanted to record for a long time. We worked at one of the Seal songs today. Quite a few classics there. Patrick MacDonald's Rio, Miss Girdle, Asahoshi, Keep It Up, the Rothy Marcus Rant. A lot of these old traditional tunes that I wanted to re-record.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where do you find most of your tunes? Do you have books of old collections, or do you listen to other musicians? Or?
Yeah, both. Things like the Sky collection, those type of books, those type of collections collected in the 18th century, the Patrick MacDonald collection. It's always worth going back to those. Yeah. They're usually, for flute players or for uilleann pipers or whistle players, they're usually written with a fiddler in mind.
Yes.
Or Highland pipes in mind. Sometimes Klarzach, harp music. But for dance music, usually they're written for fiddlers or pipers in mind. So you have to kind of bear that in mind. Sometimes change the key of the tunes.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe revoice them slightly. Chris Norman, who was at the Flute Fling back in the 90s.
2001.
Oh, 2001. Yeah, 2001. He was always saying that, don't hesitate to revoice it to make it work for the flute. And he was right. Yep. For example, if you're playing things in A mix Ladin, on the flute they sound great in G, in A as well, just to rearrange things for your own instrument.
Yeah.
And then of course, tunes that you would hear other people playing in old recordings. When you're at festivals, you hear tunes as well. So.
Okay. So you're touring with the band just now. You're playing tomorrow night in Fochabres at SpeyFest. What does the future hold? What's next?
Yeah, so my work as a musician is kind of split into two camps. I'm either playing my own music, traditional music, or tunes I've written with my own band. That's usually a trio or a quartet, so double bass, bouzouki, and as often as we can with step dance as well. I love doing that.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the time, year to year, it varies. Sometimes I may be doing mostly my own stuff or traditional music. And then some years I'm doing more of the other things, so that can be like sideman, hired gun stuff, and that can be doing traditional music. Sometimes, playing with orchestras or Scottish singers, or Duncan Chisholm, for example. I've done a few concerts with him. Julie Fowlis, I really enjoy playing with these people.
Yeah.
Sometimes depping in for other bands if they need somebody to join them for a particular concert or a tour. Playing pop music, playing orchestral music, recording film soundtracks, anything which people want uilleann pipes or flute or whistles, I'm totally up for doing.
Okay. So you heard it here. This is where you come to.
There are other people who do it, but I'm one of the people who can do that.
Excellent. So what about longer term? Is any thoughts or plans, or is that what you're focusing around? Those two main things.
Yeah, that has always been and probably always will be, really. I love joining other bands for tours and things, and for the moment anyway, I'm kind of leading my own band as well, which is really good fun. So I'll keep doing that for as long as it's fun and as long as I enjoy it, really. And then if you're as a sideman or a guest musician or a hired gun, every year is different. So you could be doing the same job in inverted commas for 10 years, and every year is different.
Yes.
Like this particular year, I'm on the road quite a lot in France and Germany with a couple of different shows. But in 2 or 3 years' time, it might be something completely different. So
keeps you on your toes, I suppose.
Yeah, and it gives you a different context for your instruments as well. So you'd be playing traditional music a lot, but then sometimes you have to readapt your own instruments playing music which is not traditional, and that gives a fresh light on coming back to.
Yes, well, you've got to keep your mind open to all the other influences. Yeah. Excellent.
So,
Well, thank you very much for your time today, and apologies for the background. As I say, there is a singing workshop going on next door, so I hope that didn't interrupt too much. But would you like to give us a quick tune or two?
Yeah.
Just to remind everyone about your style of playing and how good you are. No pressure.
I'll do my best. Give it my best. So I'll do a short Strathspey into a reel. Two very old tunes, Manlochie Bridge and Loch Earn.
Okay.
So
excellent.
I'll give these a go for you.
All right, thank you.
Cheers.